You're listening to Ideal Practice, episode number 197. Today, guys, we're going to talk about something we have not covered here, or we have barely touched on it, and that is what it takes to design, develop, run, and prepare a private practice that one of these days you can sell. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm Wendy Pitts-Reeves, and with over 2 decades of experience in the private practice world, I've built my 6-figure business while learning a lot of lessons the hard way. This is the first podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of energy, alignment, and strategy to build a practice that is profit-centered, but people-forward. This is the Ideal Practice Podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Ideal Practice Podcast. This is Wendy Pitts-Reeves, your host. And as always, I'm excited to be hanging out with you today, and I love the conversation we're about to have. As you will hear in this discussion, there was a moment at the beginning of this when I thought, I don't know, is this too much? Is this too technical? Is this beyond the reach of you guys, my audience, or for that matter, honestly, myself? But the further we went in this conversation, the more I realized that was not the case. What Dr. Ruth Mannschreck has to share today is something actually you can totally use, and you need it. And I am so glad I had this conversation. Ruth Mannschreck is a dentist. She's a practice management strategist, and she's the owner and founder of Shoreline Strategies, an LLC in Michigan. She's had over 30 years of private practice, and along the way, she has transformed her own business in some pretty dramatic ways that you'll hear about. And today, she's helping other people do the same thing through her program. She has 2. One is called Built to Run Itself, and the other is called Prep It to Sell. That first one, that comes from her stories. She built a successful dental practice from the ground up early on when she was raising 2 little boys, and then everything changed when she had a daughter who was born with some pretty serious medical complications. That experience required Ruth to be present in a way that she could not do with a full-time practice, and essentially, in a very short time, she cut her practice in half, going from 40 hours to 25 hours a week, guys. You'll hear her talk about this. And in spite of that change, in the end, that practice rebounded and exceeded its previous revenue. I think she doubled it, actually. It was really kind of amazing what came out of that. And then there's been lots of experience and growth since then. So she has a lot to share with us that I think you're going to find helpful and useful, and it's going to make you think more strategically about how to be a successful business owner with a long-term view, a long-term vision for what you're building here. I'm going to tell you something. If you're in your 30s and you are just getting your practice off the ground, and maybe it's just you, or you've got maybe 1 or 2 pre-licensed individuals who are joining you, and it's all very exciting and it's all about growth and newness, that's a lovely time to be alive, and it is so much fun and daunting and overwhelming, but all good, right? But there will come a time in your life when you're going to have a reason where you might want something different. You're going to want to walk away. It may be that you want to move and reestablish your practice somewhere else. It may be that you want to retire. It may be that you want to step into a completely different career path. It may be that you're just tired of running a business and you want to go off and rent an office somewhere, right? It's different for different people. But there will come a time when what you are building now, you will want to have something on the other side of this. You will want something different. And wouldn't it be cool if, when that day comes, whether it's 5 years from now or 25 years from now, wouldn't it be awesome if, when that day comes, you did not just close your practice and refer your clients out? Wouldn't it be great if, when that day comes, you had a practice you could sell, so that you could reap the investment of all of those years of work? I did not know how to do this. I did not even know this was a thing. I had nobody in my life to talk to me about this. And I wish I had. But you, my friend, you're lucky. You do have somebody in your life, and it's me. And today, it's Ruth Mannschreck. So tune in, stick with this all the way through because it gets clearer as the conversation goes on, okay? And with that, let's get into the interview. All right. Welcome to another episode of the Ideal Practice Podcast, everybody. You've already heard a little bit about my guest today. I just told her that when I look at all the different things that she can talk about, I really kind of want her to talk about all of them. So it's going to be a challenge for me today. But let's go ahead and get started. Ruth, come on board and say hello to everybody.
Hi, Wendy. It's so great to be here. I can't wait to speak with your audience.
Thank you. You have a very different story than what we have had on here before.
Oh.
So first of all, you're the first dentist I've had.
Oh, good. Good.
I think that gives you some kind of special spot. I don't know. Yeah. And I have long heard actually that dental practices are a really good resource to learn from, that they're very profitable, but it takes a lot to make them work. And it's it's not something that's not an area that I know a lot about, so I'm kind of interested in learning a little bit more about it.
Sure.
But let's start here. Tell everybody a little bit about where I like to start, which is where are you in the world and who do you serve and how do you serve them?
So I'm in Michigan, beautiful Michigan in the States, and I serve professionals in private practice. Can be a solo practice or a group practice. Their two biggest complaints are, one, I work too many hours. My practice is all-consuming. And two, how do I get my business, my practice ready to sell?
Yeah.
So those are the two areas that I focus on.
Okay. And we have never talked on here. I don't think I've had anybody talk about getting your practice ready to sell. Or if we do, I don't remember it. So I don't think we've done that. So you have, when we met before, I was struck by the story that you have that got you into this. You want to start with that? Just tell us that story.
Sure. So I started my dental practice from scratch. And we were moving right along. I was practicing 5 days a week. We had 2 little boys. Then my daughter was born. She had a very complicated birth. She was in the hospital she was in intensive care for weeks. And when she came home, she had to see 8 different doctors every week. And so I had to go to my team and say, we're going to take our 5 days a week and we're scrunching it down to 2.5. That is non-negotiable. I can give you 2.5 days. That's it. The rest is for my daughter. And we did it. The main areas that we focused on were our systems, making sure we changed them completely. Our systems, and then we had to have the right team members. And then to support both of those things, we had to have the right culture. And okay. I want to really emphasize that it wasn't something that Dr. Ruth figured out all on her brilliant self. I went to my team and said, together, we have to figure out how to make this happen. I don't want to lose people. I don't want to lose patients. I need to cram this down into this much time. So we had to change things. And I'm almost grateful that we were forced to do it because I don't think I would have been as adventuresome in the things that we tried. We experimented with a lot of things, but it was I have to do this.
Yeah, necessity is the mother of invention.
It was. Perfect. And then the doctor in the suite next to mine caught me in the hall one day and he said, Ruth, what are you doing? You are never here, and yet your practice is doing so well. Your team is in and out. Your patients are in and out. What's going on? How did you do this? And he actually became my first coaching client because we taught him what we had done in our practice. And just to give your audience this little message, there's a lot of differences between a dental practice and your healers. But we all have so many similarities. We have people coming to us in a panic. In my world, they're in pain. They're anxious. They're angry. They're mad. All these things.
Yeah.
And we provide this transformation in my office so that when they're finished with our whole thing, their feelings, their emotions are completely different than when they walked in the door. And I think that's one of the biggest commonalities we have as professionals in private practice as service providers in the healing world. It's not just the physical or the money part. It's that emotional transformation that I think we all provide to our clients and patients. And I think that's what makes what we do so transferable to all the different practices that I work with.
100%. I actually had a colleague at one point whose niche was helping people with dental anxiety. Because it is a huge issue, especially for trauma survivors. Huge issue. So you're right.
Yeah.
There's the emotional aspect of it. No matter what the situation is we have that in common. And we are in the business of helping people who don't feel good get better.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you got it. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So then so that's how we started coaching people on how to work fewer hours in their practice as the owner. We then moved on. I sold my first practice, and I did such a horrible job of selling my practice. That's how we stepped into the world of all the things I should have done in my practice before I let someone purchase the practice.
Okay. So go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
So much of what we did, so much of what I learned has nothing to do with revenue numbers or how big is my practice. So many owners feel that, well, I can't sell my practice until it gets this big. I have to have 7 or 8 figures, or I have to have this bulk of patients or clients that are part of my practice before I can even think of. And that's really, you leave so much on the table if you wait for those things to happen. In addition to getting to the revenue number that you want, you also need to get your house in order before you sell. So it's a very similar conversation that I have with owners when they come to me and say, a broker won't sell my practice because he says I'm not ready. What does that mean? And we help them get their house in order before
so they're ready.
Right.
Let me go back to that where you started with all this. You had a practice that was worth selling because you were able to not just sustain it, but save it and improve it. Like what happened? Like how did you go from 40 hours a week to 2.5 days? And assuming that you did not lose any clients and there's only one of you.
Right. Right.
Like, I am curious. So what I want to know is what did you build out of that? Where did your practice go? So then you had something that was worth selling, and then we'll dig into the selling.
Sure.
Yeah.
And there's so much in all of our practices that has nothing to do with a patient being or a client being in the chair and me delivering services to them. So much. We just don't think about it because all the practice management companies tell us to focus on what's your average chair time cost? What's your average revenue going to be per chair? They make us think only about our service delivery, not only, but mostly about that number has to be big and substantial or irresistible to a buyer when there's so much more. I work with practices and there's so much intellectual property, I'll call it, services or processes that practitioners have perfected and really hum in their business, and they've never thought about turning that into a revenue stream. So there's a way, and you need to scour through your practice and say, how am I different? How can I present this when I get ready to sell my practice? So what we did to answer your question, I got way off base there. To answer your question, we did those 3 things. We worked through our systems, and we started with what I call, everyone can do this, what I call the client journey or the patient journey through your practice. From that very first phone call, what do you want to happen? What information has to be collected? What emotion are they feeling in that moment when they call? And at the end of that call, how do you want them to feel?
Oh, I love
What
that.
emotion do you want them to feel? Then the next step, do they get scheduled? Who's responsible for scheduling? What information do they need? And how are they going to hand off the patient to the next step in your process? What comes after scheduling? Then there's diagnostic or collecting information. Maybe there's service delivery. All those steps.
The intake. For us, it would be the intake.
Yes.
First appointment, right?
Yes.
Right. Initial consult.
And think about the emotion of your patient or your client at each of those steps. And what can you do to bring them to a different emotion? Because remember, our transformation that we provide is from the mess that calls us in the beginning to what is it at the end that we want them to feel, because that's what they're going to remember.
I love that. Okay. And you don't think about that in terms of your systems, like,
I know.
answering phone calls and scheduling a client, setting up the consult, thinking about the emotional aspect of those very first few
Yes.
interactions. That's a very good point. Love that.
And just making the patient or client feel heard and appreciated, even in the midst of their mess, that someone listened, looked them in the eye, so to speak, and really heard what they said. Not that it's right or wrong, but just to understand where they are and make them feel heard. That could
Okay.
be the gist of your whole first phone call.
Yeah.
But to track that for each client, each patient all along the way, how are they doing? Are they better than the last time they came? Do you see progress? And do you reflect that progress back to your team and to the patient so that everyone sees, everyone is on board for that whole experience? It's the difference between, like, I went to my own physician, and at the end of the appointment, I came out of the little exam room, and the assistant pointed me down the hall and said, "Mary down at the desk, I'll take care of you. It's down there." I would never let anyone do that in my practice. We walk our patients down to the desk. We
And
wait for
hand them
Mary
over.
and hand them over with verbal explanations. "Mary, this is Ruth. She needs to have this appointment." And to me, they would say, "Ruth, this is Mary. She's going to set up and tell me what's going to happen next." So that
Such a
there's
small thing.
handoff. It's
Yeah.
so important
Yeah.
because things get lost so easily. And that's part of what we did to shorten everything that happened, was to tighten up those systems. So I love this saying from one of my favorite books: cracks are where the light comes in. So to get rid of those cracks where information could fall out or a
Okay.
patient could get lost, we had to
Okay.
tighten up all of that together.
I love that. So this is an efficiency.
Partly.
Partly,
Yeah.
but it's also tending to the patient in a more
Yeah.
intentional and in connected way, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if we're
Like
going to
it.
shorten face-to-face time with my patients, then what we do give them has to be just brilliant, has to be just all enveloping, so they feel totally cared for and they won't mind that it takes less time to
Okay. I
do.
love that. Okay. Okay.
But I have to say, we didn't bring our revenue back up to where it was before by shortening our appointments, because the time spent, the doctor spending time with the patients.
Yeah, I'm like, you were the
Yeah.
one that was doing those 40 hours, right? And you're
Yeah.
seeing the same number of people in less time?
It's more complicated than that.
I bet it is. I bet
It
is.
is.
Okay.
But the
Okay.
gist of the whole thing is my team and I figured out systems. Then we had to have the right team, because you have to have empathic, compassionate, very soft skill heavy team members who can hold that patient's emotional journey all the way through the process.
Yeah.
So we were taking on more of the work ourselves in order to speed it up.
Okay.
So we took responsibility for making sure that our patients, our clients, went from emotion to emotion to emotion along their journey, their time in my practice, all the way to follow-up, whatever that means in your office, well checks, touching base, whatever you want to call it. That whole system needs to be seamless, and the energy needs to be so that if someone else does a follow-up phone call, they know exactly what energy they need to bring that patient up to. And it's just like, "Hi, I'm Mary, and I don't know what you need, but Doc said to call you."
Yeah.
It needs to be really emotionally you're matching who you're speaking with. And it makes such a difference.
What I'm hearing here is that you just really cleaned things up and tightened the overall process much more consciously. And I'm guessing you had the roles that you assigned people, what your team did as whatever their section of that process was, and making sure that everybody was on board about the overall
Right.
kind of quality of patient care
Sure.
and quality of it's customer service. This is what we're talking about, is
Sure.
customer service.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
And the biggest difference in my team was I went from hiring people who do tasks
Yeah.
to hiring people who own a role.
Oh, that's a very
So
different way of thinking.
huge difference. We
Mm,
changed our entire hiring process. Um,
wow.
yeah, we did a lot, but
Yeah.
because your normal run-of-the-mill breathing person that you want to hire because you're desperate is not going to help you when you're taking responsibility for the flow of the client journey through your practice.
So in a counseling practice or a massage practice or an energy healing
Mm-hmm.
practice, I'm thinking if you're a solo provider,
Mm-hmm.
you may be the only person that ever talks to your client, but you can apply the same principle in terms of being more conscious and deliberate about how and when you communicate to them. But if you are running a group practice, which a lot of my listeners do, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
folks I talk to, and you've got, 10 or 12, 15 providers and a boatload of clients coming in all day, you may
Mm-hmm.
have front office staff. You may not, like you may or may not have physical office staff, but you may have a digital system or a telephone system, and you can still drop people and still miss things along the way. So
Mm-hmm.
I love this. I do talk about the client journey quite a bit in terms of the overall flow of your business from when
Mm-hmm.
people first even are aware that you exist to when they come into services, et
Mm-hmm.
cetera. But you're taking this down to a micro level. That's what I like
Yeah.
about this. It's a micro level, like
Mm-hmm.
literally walk in the door, what happens? And when they walk back
Mm-hmm.
out, what happens? Okay, got it. Okay. Owning the role. You're also in that I'm hearing giving your staff more
Mm-hmm.
authority. More authority. Yeah.
It is. It is. With responsibility
Yep.
has to come authority.
Yep.
Right. Exactly.
Hmm.
And so think about that. That was a huge thing in my practice. It's it's dangerous to be in a dental office sometimes. People can die in my office. So
Hmm.
I don't take lightly giving my team members authority because it's my license on the line. It's
Yep.
my patients' lives on the line. So it's not willy-nilly that I say, oh, just let them take care of it. This is serious stuff. So
Yeah.
someone has to earn the right to take that responsibility on. I give them authority because they've stepped up to owning and being responsible for that. And I have trust
Hmm.
in that. So we
Hmm.
have a whole process of how do I build trust in my team members over their roles in my practice. How does that work? You
That's
know?
leadership on your part.
And it's me being responsible for the personal growth of my
Yeah.
team.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. I love that, Ruth. That's really cool. And I would think that that would make your practice stand out
It
because
does.
even folks who aren't, quote, the doctor, or in my case, the therapist or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
the practitioner, everybody is important who interacts
Mm-hmm.
with those clients in some way. Everybody. And in my world, I would say like even the billing clerk, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
even the scheduler or
That's
whatever,
right.
the assistant
That's
that sends
right.
them the paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
It's upping your, not just how you do what you do, but the energy you bring to it. I love
Sure.
that. Mm-hmm.
And you also need a way to communicate with your team members so
Yeah.
that so in my world, we have software, and when the phone rings, it tells us who it is, and there's a place for notes so that before a staff person answers the phone, they can quick read through the notes and know
Mm.
just exactly how she was when she left the office the last time. What is
Okay.
she anxious about? What questions might she have? So that communication has to happen all the way through any of our systems. And so sometimes in a smaller practice, or if you don't have a dedicated project management software to
Yeah.
use, you have to come up with how are we going to communicate Where do we store this information? And how is it accessible for anyone who might be on the phone, who might be doing emails, or who's going to cross paths with the patient in the hallway?
That's
Everyone,
awesome. Yeah, that's
everyone
a great. Yeah.
needs to adjust to the patient when they see them, when they run into them, when they email them. All of that needs to be provided somewhere so that everybody who's supposed to has access to it.
Yeah, she's talking about, I mean, this is an information system, right? So how you're not just your client records, but so that you can quickly access their status, where they are, and know what to do. And if you're handing this off to somebody, they need to be able to get that same information. And there are ways to do this that are fancy and expensive, and there are ways to do this that are DIY.
Sure.
There are ways to do this if you've got a small team or if you're just by yourself. But that is a really important system. That makes me think about, I won't go into the details, but I had a very robust system for how I kept up with all of my clients and all of my phone calls. And every time I got on a call with somebody, I could easily go back and look at the record of when we had talked before and what we had said, what the action step was, what my responsibility was. Not everybody does that, though. I know people who literally scratch notes on a piece of paper and then they lose that paper. So that's great. I love that. And that's also efficiency and also client care. Awesome. Love it.
Yeah, that communication is a huge piece of it. And the third piece of that, to go all the way around, so it's systems, team members, is your culture. What I find when I go into practices is that way back at the beginning, the doctor came up with 4 or 5 core values, big words, sounded good, put them on a plaque, stuck it on the wall, and that's it. Never heard from again. So what we teach is to take those core values and turn them into something tangible. That's the problem with core values. They're ethereal. They're big words. They mean something different to everyone. Like, what does excellence mean? Or what does good quality mean? It's different for everyone. So we take those core values and turn them into behaviors.
Okay.
Identifiable behaviors, so that you can have your team say, that's what compassion looks like. That's what empathy looks like in action. Because if they have a better idea of what your expectations as the owner of how you want your core value, big word, defined by them and what it looks like in action, because that's what's going to pique your team members to behave the way you want that word defined. And that's what your patients and clients, when they walk out the door, that's the impression they're going to walk out with. So you're creating your brand as they walk out, because you've wholeheartedly, your whole team has worked together to create this culture that's irresistible to both your team members. So they say, I want to work here. I love this.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care if you don't pay me as much as the guy next door. This is a great place to work. I want to hang out here.
There's a lot to be said for that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I want you to pay your people well, because they're working hard to help you achieve your dream goal, you know? And so I want them paid well. But I also want the culture to be irresistible, so they say, "Oh, I want to work here. This is where I want to make a difference."
So when I ran a group practice, which I did for 25 plus years, I often would have people who came to work in my practice say that it was not a typical group practice. It was so different from what they were used to, because we had a sense of community, and because we had a cohesive, a brand that stood for something in our community.
Right.
But we also had lots and lots and lots of ways that we supported each other and encouraged people to grow on their own. And it was, so we had sort of the benefit of the structure of a group practice and all that comes with that, but also had the flexibility and freedom of individuality inside that. And people would work not for me, with me, in a way that a very different way than it would have been somewhere else. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And what I love about this, Ruth, is how cohesive it is. You really are looking at Everything from the inside out and the upside down, right? Bottom to top, out the end,
And
right?
it moves forward. So
Okay.
we're talking about how to make your practice run more smoothly, but it goes all the way to how you get your practice ready to sell.
Yes.
Because you need a differentiator when you go to sell a practice, because there are businesses galore that are for sale. What makes yours different? An irresistible culture is one of those things that will come top of mind to the right kind of buyer.
Love it. Okay.
So we're talking about how to improve things on one end, but all the things I talk about are going to have a positive effect on how you get your practice ready to sell. We're talking about turning it into something turnkey, because most buyers are not looking for a 70-hour-a-week job to buy. They would like something that produces money, that produces clients, that gets them in the right location, but they're not looking for 70 hours a week of work. They just aren't.
Right.
And we get so wrapped up in making it, because we're having fun. Sure, we work too many hours, but we love doing it, and we're helping people. We see all these things, and we don't think about, is this sellable? What I have, is it sellable? The way it's set up, the way my systems run, the way my team owns or doesn't own their roles, and the way my culture is irresistible to everybody.
And stands out among the competition.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to have a way. So to go to how to sell your business, I liken it to Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
Okay.
Because you want a buyer, not just a buyer who has deep pockets and lots of money and can afford your asking price, but you want someone who matches your culture. You want someone who appreciates your team members. You want someone who enjoys your systems and the expediency that they bring. All of that, that's what you want. Because if you just go into the transaction looking for money and someone to relieve you from the responsibility of your practice, you're going to get walked all over.
Ruth, before you get into, because you're talking about finding the right buyer, right?
Right.
Before you get into, I think we need to start a little bit more basic. Okay, because I ran a practice for forever, and no one ever talked to me about selling it. It wasn't until the very end that I wished I had had this conversation. And when I think about conversations I've had with colleagues, and I've seen people retire, they just close their practice, right?
I know. I call it evaporating. It's just heartbreaking.
Well, let's start really, really basic here, because I think this is something that we, especially in my world, we just don't talk about. What does it mean to sell a practice? What are you selling? Are you selling the building? Are you selling a client list? What are you selling, literally?
So, unfortunately, what I see people selling is what I'll call a book of business, just because that's a term. Could be your client charts, or it could be your equipment. It could be your location. It could be your real estate. I'm not an attorney. There are all different kinds of ways. I encourage people to look at what you're selling and how can I increase the value. It's one of the big tenets of getting your practice ready to sell. How can I increase the value of what I have to offer? So it could be as simple as, not only do I have a team, but I have a team that's running at 50% capacity. So they are all ready to go if you want to add new patients to my current practice. So that's a selling point. That's because when you go to sell your practice, you don't just grab your P&L and your balance sheet and hand it to a broker and say, go find somebody who can afford this. You have to sell it. It's like you're running a commercial on TV. You have to have points of interest. You have to have something that increases the value. You need a differentiation. If there were two therapy practices in your town, why should the buyer pick yours over the other practice?
Okay.
You need a competitive advantage. There are lots of things, and these are all things that you're not going to fix overnight. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can fix a revenue problem in a year or so. If you have a culture problem or if you have a employee problem, it's going to take some time. So in fact, I just this morning heard a business broker say, you should start 3 to 5 years before you want to sell your practice. I say, what if we started 10 years? 10
Mm.
years before we wanted to sell our practice. I have
Yeah.
some different ideas on how to sell a practice. When I sold my very first practice, I was told, don't tell your team until Monday morning after you've made the sale.
Oh.
And stupid little me, I believed them. And that
Mm.
was the cruelest thing I could have ever done. I was
Mm.
crushed when I saw how
Yeah.
that made them feel.
Yeah.
So what if we started 10 years before we thought we were going to sell and said to our team, you know what? In 10 years, I'm probably going to be gone. So let's spend this 10 years making sure this is the best practice we can put on the market and make you as my team so indispensable that the new buyer is not going to give a second thought to letting you go when they take over the practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking, it makes me think about Stephen Covey's 7 Habits and the concept of beginning with the end in mind. I am astonished actually at how many people I see starting practices fresh out of grad school, like late 20s, early 30s. Although I was, I guess that's about kind of where I was. But I spend so much time talking to people about how to start a practice, grow a practice, run a practice. If we started talking about selling it from the very beginning, that someday you don't know it now because you're just getting started and you can't even imagine it. But
Right.
someday, it may be 10 years, it may be 20, it may be 5. Someday you're going to want to do something else. So from the beginning, here are some things to be thinking about so that when the day comes, you've got a
Right.
marketable product here. So, all right. So what I hear you talking, so when you're talking about team, when you said 50% capacity, at first I didn't know what you meant, but you mean you've got people that have room to take on more business, right? So that would
Right.
not necessarily be a deficit. Look at all this empty staff time we've got that we're not
Oh,
billable hours.
so
It's
this is where you're Goldilocks. You're looking for the right
got
buyer,
it.
someone
Mm-hmm.
who has patients, needs clinicians to help service more people. You know,
Mm-hmm.
every buyer comes with different wants.
Yeah.
It's not all about, I've got extra money, I'm going to spend it on a practice. It's, I need a different location. It's, I need a piece of real estate. It's, I have all these patients I can't service. I need more clinicians. They
Mm-hmm.
come with their own agenda, and we need to think bigger than, I just need somebody who can afford to pay me right now, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So figuring out what you want as Goldilocks, and then at working with a broker or without, it happens both ways. Who are you looking for exactly? Not just the right dollar amount, but someone who's going to blend with your team, utilize your systems, fit right in with your culture. And in my book, that means bringing your team in the selection process of who's going to be the buyer. We need to
Mm.
we approach sales, the selling of our practice, with a scarcity mentality.
Mm.
Like, man, I hope I find somebody who can afford to pay me this dollars.
And who will
What
keep
if,
my team and will keep my staff
yes,
so they don't lose
yes.
their
And
jobs.
we have
Yeah.
our fingers crossed and we're praying. And we should come with a sense of generosity and abundance and say, I'm going to help this work the right way. And I'm going to bring my team in as part of this transaction. One of my practices, and it was a psychotherapy practice, they had 3 locations, maybe 35 or 40 practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought they had practice interviews with potential buyers.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so he brought someone in to pretend that they were wanting to buy the practice, and they would spend the day in the practice. All the team got to spend time with them. They got to see how everyone functioned. Then after they left, they had a debrief with their team
That's impressive. Like a
and
big role
said,
play.
yes, yes, and said, so what do you think about this guy? Think you could work with him? Does he have the right mindset to take care of our clients.
Mm-hmm.
Our team members, I don't think we give them enough credit. They have a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful perspective on what happens in our practice.
Yeah.
And it's different than ours. Yes, I know fully well what happens in my practice, but my team sees everything from a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we all
Yeah.
know this. Our clients ask the team members more questions than they would ever ask the doc,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So they
Mm-hmm.
see so much. And it's really a detriment to us as owners if we don't tap into that reservoir of information about what's going on in our practice.
Yeah.
And not only does it help us get a more well-rounded picture of our practice, but it makes your team members feel like $1,000,000 because you appreciated their opinion enough to ask for it.
I love that. I love including your people and making them part of the process. I agree. I think that's just a good way to run a business, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to get us off track. I have two different sort of ways I'm thinking about here. I know you have like 4 pillars of what you need to do to prepare your practice to sell, and I'm interested in hearing about that. And then I'm curious about like what kind of people buy a practice? Like what's the scenario that you're looking for? Is it like you mentioned location, they already have an existing practice somewhere else and they're looking to expand? Is it somebody that they're not even in the industry? It's just an investment opportunity for them? Or something else I'm not even thinking about, but I'm kind of, and how does the broker thing work? I want to talk about that too. But let's do, before I get ahead of myself, tell me about the 4 pillars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. And we already touched on some of them. One is to increase the value of your practice as much as you can. Yes, there's some financial ideas about what that would be, but like intellectual property is a thing that so many owners just don't even realize could be a thing, you know? So the first is to increase the value. The second is to decrease the perceived risk. So buyers get red flags. And some of the things that worry buyers would be, one, if the owner is the face of the practice in the community.
Oh.
You know? So the old style of practice, and I did it this way too, is to just have your name, Ruth Mannschreck DDS. You know, that was the name of my practice. That's really more difficult to sell. Yes, you can sell it.
Yep.
But if I wasn't the face, so you have to change, if you want to do this, you change your thought process from deciding how Dr. Mannschreck's going to care for her clients or patients to how is this practice going to care for them?
Yeah.
It's the same process when you bring associates in and you ask your patients to let someone else work with them.
Yep.
They have to understand that the culture of the entire practice is just how they perceive me as the doc.
100%.
You know?
I get that. Yeah. It can't be a personal brand. It needs to be bigger than that, broader than that. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
And so other things that look like risk to a buyer, if you have different providers, different producers in your practice, and a large percentage of your revenue comes from one producer or one provider, that's going to worry a buyer, because if that producer doesn't happen to like the new buyer, they're just going to leave and there goes all that revenue. So diversifying your production is a huge thing. Same with referral sources. If you have 1 or 2 referral sources who happen to be good friends with the doc, that's going to throw a red flag up, because when the doc leaves, when the seller leaves the practice, you might lose those referral partners too.
Yeah.
So you want to build your bench of referral partners so that you can show depth of bench to the new buyer.
This is great. This is so good.
Okay?
Yeah.
But it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So the third thing is competitive advantage. What makes why are you different? Pardon me. Why are you different from all the other practices in town? You need to have, the easy ones are, you were the first in your location, or you're the biggest in your location. Those are easy ones everyone talks about. I don't find those as very enticing to a buyer.
Or you have a specialty or a niche that nobody else is serving,
Yeah,
right?
right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. So think about compare your list of services to other practitioners in your area. How are you different? Because there's always going to be a competitor, and you need for it to be so obvious to a buyer that they would pick you over one just like you, but they don't have whatever your competitive advantage is. Does that
Yeah,
make
so
sense?
think that's a really great way to look at this. Like my practice was a general practice, and we wanted to be known as a one-stop shop. That whatever you
Yeah.
needed, whatever the problem was, we could
Mm-hmm.
handle it. And we did have that, and we were the biggest, and we were really kind of the
Mm-hmm.
go-to place at the time. That's changed today, but that's how it was. On the other hand, complete opposite. So I could see selling that as like, we are the place everybody goes. You want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is right. But the opposite of that is there are a few practices in our region who only serve men
Yep.
and their families, or only
Mm-hmm.
do couples work, or only do
Mm-hmm.
birth related, perinatal and
Right.
maternal stuff, right? And if you are looking to specialize in a particular area, there's not a ton serving that. So that stands out. That would make it more profit or more marketable. That makes sense to
Right.
me. I like it.
Right.
I like it. Okay.
Because see, then again, you're self-selecting for a different buyer
Yeah.
who's just looking for adolescent, or they're
Yep.
just looking for marital
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
whatever it is, whether you want to serve everyone or just your niche,
Mm-hmm.
perfect. You can do either way. Just get really, really good at what you do and make sure your market understands that's your competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever
Love it.
that is, you need to create it, and then you need to tell everybody about it.
And own it. Like own it. Claim
Yeah.
claim it. Don't
Yep.
be mild. Don't be meek about it. Okay. Great.
Right.
That's perfect.
And the fourth pillar is that you want your practice to be turnkey. You want it
Okay.
to be easy because and we kind of talked about this before, no one is going to buy a 70-hour a week job. That's just not enticing. You want to give any potential buyer the freedom to not worry about your systems because they're solid. Communication is right there. You've got a team that's running it. They don't need to be there, 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week. It's whatever the buyer wants to add to your beautiful thing that you've created. It gives them such freedom to make a decision instead of saying, well, you got great revenue, but I don't have 70 hours a week to put toward a new business, you
And
know?
you as the practice owner or you as the senior clinician, that's what I
Yeah.
see you doing. That's not sustainable. So what else you
Right.
got? Yeah. Love
Yeah.
it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So those are the four big things. And remember, you're Goldilocks. You're looking for a match. And the better you get at deciding for yourself what that match is, translating that to your team so that they know, and then telling the world that that's what you're looking for.
You know what I love about this, Ruth, is that what you're describing that gets your practice ready to sell is also what just makes your practice work
I
better.
know.
Right?
I know.
It's just a healthier business.
Yes.
That's really, really awesome. But if knowing this on the front end, if from the beginning you are designing a business that meets these four criteria, which
Mm-hmm.
are all crystal clear, really helpful, the day comes. So when you're ready to retire or you want to
Mm-hmm.
move or you just want to do something different, you're changing your life,
Right.
whatever, right? Tell me, like, how do you go about selling? Like, what does a broker do? How do you do this without a broker? How do you even start looking for a buyer?
Sure. So you put together what's called a prospectus, and
Okay.
it's almost like a marketing piece that explains everything about your practice.
Okay.
And if you put that together before you go to see a broker, it speeds the process. And in order to when you put together the perspectives, that's what shows you, oops, this little area of my practice isn't very tidy. I better go clean that up, you
Okay.
know? So if you go through that work ahead of time and look at those areas we talked about, how I decided to work fewer hours is what you need to do to get your practice ready to sell. You're absolutely right. Those are the same processes, you know. The more you can do that ahead of time, that'll save you time with the broker. And there are
So
actually
a prospectus is like a dashboard, like a summary.
Yeah,
of
it's an
key
executive
things.
summary, so
Executive,
to
got
speak,
it.
of
Mm-hmm.
everything, explaining all the great parts of and it's a marketing piece. You have
Okay.
to brag about all the great things that you're doing. You have to be honest, and if you don't, you'll get a bad name in the legal world, and you don't want that.
Yeah.
But you have to put your goodness out there. You
Mm,
know, you do. Think about it.
mm,
You are, as a service provider, are responsible to a certain extent for the ongoing care of your clients. So it's in the best interest of taking care of your precious clients that you want to do a good job of putting together the prospectus and therefore selling your business. Your broker is going to focus on numbers. And there are several times, there are 2 or 3 times when people think about selling their practice. So the growth of revenue in a practice starts off on a steep slope, and then it kind of plateaus off. And then the doc does something different and you get another rise. When
mm-hmm.
you get that second rise, that's when you want to sell your practice.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that second rise in revenue doesn't always happen. One, when the doc has collected enough money to retire, or second, just said, I am so tired, I just want to stop.
Yeah.
Or I want to start a new venture. I'd like the money from this practice to help me start a new venture. Those timelines don't always coincide.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing what is it going to take for me to feel comfortable to step back away from my practice, whether you retire or you don't. What do I need? How can I collect that quickly? And where is my revenue growth in my practice? Am I on that? Because they're going to want to see 3 years worth of trending metrics for your practice.
Okay.
So you don't want to wait till you get to the second plateau and then say, well, now is the time to sell, because you've missed that trend. They want you in a growth trend.
They want to see you're growing. Mm-hmm.
A growth trend is enticing to a buyer.
Okay.
Yeah. A practice that's done growing is not so enticing.
That makes sense. Okay.
So that's why they ask for a history of your financials so that they can see where are you headed, what's your trajectory, So it behooves you to go back 10 years ahead and say, well, how long is my energy going to last? How long do I want to keep doing this? How long is it going to take me to get my retirement in order? And where is the growth curve of my revenue right now? Where is it going to be in 3 years? Get the timing down on all those things makes it much easier, and there's less disappointment when you start to talk with a broker if you've already thought about those things.
I can see how this would be a little tricky, right? To get that timing right. And also, if my growth is picking up, that's going to be it's going to be emotionally harder for me to sell.
Yes.
Right? Because we're doing good. We're just beginning to make some progress here. What do you mean sell?
Yes. And I have to admit, I've had clients come to me and say, let's get this ready because I want to sell. And then we get it all cleaned up and everything's cooking with gas. And they say, I don't think I want to sell it now. I'm just going to
because I'm making money.
and I'm not working as many hours because it's a self-propelling business. It runs itself. I just keep it on the tracks.
Well, no, we never did say this, but I remember you telling me, tell me if I'm wrong about that, when you cut your time in half and your team's time, like the whole office, when your daughter was going through all that, when you came back, when you got it all figured out, you doubled your revenue, right? Mm-hmm. Am I remembering that correct?
Mm-hmm. We never went back to 5 days a week.
Yeah.
I have never, since then, I have never practiced 5 days a week again. It was running so beautifully, but it took us work to get to that part. But it can be, that's one of the joys of being a practice owner is you can design it any way you want. Mm-hmm. You can say, I want to sit in a chair till the day I die. Or you can say, I just want to be in the background and orchestrate my team. You know,
This
you
is
can
this is what an
pick.
ideal practice is. It's whatever you want
Yeah.
it to be for you. But I think this is important. You cut your time in half and your office staff, your team, everybody in half.
Hmm.
You not only did not lose money, you cleaned things up and polished things up in all the ways you're talking about today, which I know I'm sure it was a huge process, really. We're just hitting the highlights. I know.
Yes.
I know that.
Yes.
But with time and effort and clarity and precision and experimentation,
Hmm.
you gradually got it back to where not only were you making the same money that you had been making 5 days a week,
Hmm.
but you doubled it.
Hmm.
It's like your revenue, like that. I know that's a whole story all by itself, and we don't have time to go into that.
Sure.
But
And
it's so cool what you're teaching here. And like, if you do this right,
hmm.
guys, you really could be setting on something that can make really, really good money for you, an important
Hmm.
part in your life. And I also like what you said about you owe it to your clients to make sure
Yeah.
that they are taken care of after you leave.
Right.
And you don't just have to close your practice and refer them everywhere.
Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
other ways to do it. This is good.
And I want to really make clear that it was not brilliant Ruth that did all
It
this.
was the team.
I went to my team and
Yeah,
together we put this all together. It was very messy, lots of
I
trial and
bet.
error. That's
Yeah,
the part I can save people from having to go through on their own.
yeah, yeah,
Because once you see, and when you put your systems in place and your existing team looks at the systems and the communication that you now expect in your practice, they self-select whether they want to be there or not. You know, we were very blessed. Most of our people stayed and said and took great ownership of what happened. But it is a divining time when people say, whoa, I kind of liked it when we were sloppy and lazy and just a little bit inefficient, because that's so comfortable. So there's weeding that happens, sifting
yep,
and sorting,
yep,
and
yep.
team members, it becomes very obvious whether they want to take ownership for their roles and want to contribute to making the whole practice better, or
Yeah.
if they just want to show up and do tasks.
Well,
Big difference.
it's just like in terms of the clients and customers that you attract. There are people who'll be a good fit for you and people who are not.
Mm-hmm.
So the kind of team that you attract will be people who love this way of thinking
Mm-hmm.
and want more of
Mm-hmm.
it. You'll lose the people who don't, which is
Right.
fine. You don't need them anyway. They're not your
Mm-hmm.
ideal staff, not your ideal client, but they're not your
Right.
ideal staff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And just one more little note that because a lot of my clients say, well, I don't really need to do a whole lot to get things ready because I want to sell it to my second in command who's just going to take over the practice. And that works a lot.
That's kind of what
But
I did when I left my practice. That's kind of what I
and
did. Yeah.
but it makes you think small
Mm,
because if you didn't have the constraints, because you know how much this person makes when they work for you, if you didn't have that constraint, what would you ask for in your practice?
yeah.
If you had your asking price based solely on the amazing practice that you put together, plus your financials and how
Mm,
it runs, it would be a much bigger number
mm,
than mentally what you think your second in command can handle. And
yeah.
don't get me wrong, practices do that all the time.
I bet.
But I think owners do themselves a disservice by just saying, sure,
Yeah.
sure, this will
It,
work.
well, it's an easy way out. And if you're like me and you don't know how to do this anyway, or you're in an industry where nobody
Yeah.
teaches you, like what else do? You don't know any other way.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, okay. Yeah, that's real. I bet you see that a whole lot. I bet that's rarely
I
common.
feel so bad. And
Yeah.
in the dental industry, we have brokers who do nothing except dental practices. But in the psychotherapy, chiropractors, I don't see that amount of expertise. So
Mm-mm.
that's part of my mission is you guys need to think about this because nobody's there to tell you that, oh, think about this and create this and make it irresistible and get yourself out there. Tell people what you're excellent at, how you care for your patients so that your practice becomes irresistible to them.
I love that you said you have to put your goodness out in the world. I
Yeah.
wrote that down. That's going to be my quote today because I love that.
Yeah.
Because they don't. And I preach this all the time, just in terms of marketing your practice and making sure your clients can find you. Like they're not going to find you if you're hiding. Like you got to get out there
Right.
and you can't help
Right.
people. But what
Yep.
you're taking this, like you're adding a whole nother layer here, like about
Mhm.
why this is worth it, guys. It's not only serves your clients, it not only helps you fill up your own practice, but when you go to sell, this is
Right.
part of the value that you're bringing. Like put your goodness out into the world so that somebody
Hmm.
else can pick it up and keep it going when you're done.
Right.
I like that a
Right.
lot. Yeah. You said that when you sold your first practice, have you done this more than once? Did you
Oh
start
yes,
another one? Yeah.
I bought a practice, and we could have a whole session on all the things I did wrong when I bought my first practice, and I sold that one too. Much different process
Huh.
than the first one. So I've been on both sides of the practice, and it really hurts my heart to see professionals who have spent their entire career
Yeah.
building this wonderful thing and then have to just set it down
Yeah.
because they didn't focus on learning how to sell it, didn't
Yeah.
have the energy or the intention to create something that somebody else would want. They were so busy serving their clients and their patients that thought never entered their mind, and then they got stuck at the end, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So I'm on a mission to tell people, think intentionally long term about what are you creating and how can you make it irresistible so that you take care of first your clients in the future and your team members in
Yeah.
the future.
Yeah. 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 So looking back on that, I'm just curious. You had done so many things right in that first practice when you went through this huge change.
Sure.
This right.
Hmm.
What is it that, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently when you sold it? Because clearly, I know you learned from that. That's part of what you're
Oh,
teaching us.
sure.
But what did you not do that you wish you had done?
I would have done so much more research.
Okay.
So, and it's just, I have stories. I was working on a patient, and the ceiling in my operatory collapsed on
Oh my
us.
gosh.
Yes. So we had to
Oh
stop.
dear.
Everybody had to leave. The building was full of mold. I couldn't go back into my office to care anymore. I had to find a place to practice like
Oh my gosh.
tomorrow. And so my excuse for doing a bad job is, well, I had to do it fast. So I don't know what I was doing. I just was saying yes to whatever worked to get us a place to be. But that's an excuse. Um, and so I'm driven by events, a crisis. I'm a deadline person. Give me a deadline and I am there.
I
And
can totally
then,
relate to that. Yeah.
and I would never have dreamed of cutting my time in half if it hadn't been forced on me, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad, and I would never have thought of selling my practice so quickly if I didn't, all of a sudden I had no practice, no office. It
Gosh.
was gone.
Lord have
They wouldn't
mercy.
let us back in. So those situations forced me to do things. I never want people to be in any of those situations because it's so good to just make these changes on your own with your team and make it part of the growth of your practice.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I think a lot of us are driven by crises. Like the pandemic did
Yeah.
that for a lot of folks,
Oh
right?
my goodness. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I had a full practice
Hmm.
with a bunch of providers and a very full practice caseload and went online overnight. Like left my last live
Yeah.
client at 5 o'clock, and at 8 o'clock the next morning we were online, and I had no idea how to do online counseling. So like that's kind of,
Yeah.
and I've seen this a lot in a kind of going back to the idea that when you're the face of the practice, when there's a well-established, well-respected practice and it's really built around one person who passes away,
Oh,
or there's
yeah.
some kind of a crisis like that. I've
Hmm.
seen that happen.
Hmm.
Like life happens to everybody, and it's so easy. Like Lord knows we are all busy out the wazoo just trying to juggle all the things we're
Right.
juggling. But your point is, when you think strategically and carefully about the future and you prepare for it now, everything's going to be better. And what I want to really highlight about that is that doing how you do anything is how you do everything. And when you are running a healthy practice that's going to work to sell, you're running a healthy practice that's going to work for your clients and your team and yourself now. You're not just waiting for something that's 20 years out in the future. You are also getting yourself set up for success now. And I just think that's brilliant. I think that's brilliant.
Yep.
And I wish
And
I wish I had known this stuff back when I was starting a
oh,
practice.
there's so much I wish I had known.
Yeah.
And
That's how we learn.
it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do
It,
remember they tried to teach us practice management in dental school. We had one class, and I have to own up to I was one of those arrogant seniors. I sat in the back row and I read the newspaper
yeah.
during that class. I thought
Yeah.
I
I
can
don't
run a
need this.
business. Just let me out there. I'm going to take care of everybody and I'm going to do a great job, blah, blah, blah. And I had no idea what I was doing when it to do payroll. What?
What? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was like, I don't care about all that. That's boring. Who cares about
I
business?
know.
I don't care. I just want to
Yeah,
help
yeah.
people, right? Right. While I am starving my
Yes,
family because I'm
I
not making
know.
any money, right? And feeling guilty all
Hmm.
the time. It's
Yeah.
and I do also want to just say that I appreciate, and I hope y'all who are listening, I hope you heard what Ruth said about that in the dental world, there are brokers and there are practice management experts,
Hmm.
and they do actually, I think, get more of this kind of business help than we do in the social work world,
Sure.
mental health in
Sure.
general. Like we just don't at
Hmm.
all. In fact, we're sort of shamed for thinking about it, actually. It's much more like, why do you care about that? And that's not important. What's important is how many people are you seeing and are you
Hmm.
helping?
Hmm.
So it's validating to hear you
Hmm.
say that. Yeah, I know y'all don't get a lot of this. And I'm glad there's people like you out there who are ready to teach it because we need it. You have an entire market
Hmm.
is waiting on you, my friend.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, this is really good. So is there any, well, let me just ask you this. If people want to know more about the four pillars, if they want to know more about how to get
Hmm.
prepared, what's the best way for them to find you, to connect with you, to just learn from you? Because
Hmm.
clearly you got some things to teach. Where do they go?
We put together a free download for your listeners. So if they go to the URL prepitnow.com, it's kind of a review of the pillars that we spoke of,
Okay.
and it gives our great ways to connect with us afterwards.
Great.
But it's a nice way to just be able to read through what we talked about because we covered a lot of territory today.
We did.
So that's a nice way to get part of our world, to become part closer to the work that we do and where they'd see us online.
Okay. Prepitnow.com. And then do
Right.
you have a primary website that
We do.
okay, what's that?
My company name is Shoreline Strategies. So shorelinestrategies.com is our website. And there's multiple different ways they can reach out either
Okay.
for making your business run without you, so you're not working so many hours, or how to get it ready to sell.
Okay, awesome. And y'all, there was a little bit of a Michigan accent in there. She said shoreline.
Yeah, sorry.
I heard
Right.
shoreline.
Oh,
So
sure.
like Lake
Right.
Michigan, like shoreline. Yeah. Okay. So
Right.
I'll make sure that we have both of those linked below. Ruth, thank you. This has been super thought provoking.
Thank you.
It's it's really easy to kind of go, help. This is like
Hmm.
so, and like when we first started talking, I had a brief moment of feeling like, oh, this is so far beyond me. And then as we got into it, I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's just
No.
good business. It's really just good
Hmm.
business. But you have given us lots to think about that I think is useful and digestible
Hmm.
and practical. So I appreciate that. Before we call this to a close, one of the things I like to do that I don't always remember, but I wanted to ask you, is there anything that we haven't covered? Because we covered a lot of ground very fast, and
Hmm.
I know there's
Yeah.
tons more. But is
Hmm.
there anything I didn't ask you, anything we forgot to cover, or anything that you just feel called to share that you feel like would make this conversation complete?
Sure. Sure. I do have something. I always
Okay.
encourage people to think about, what do you want to happen when you retire? What does
Mm,
that look like to you? Do you want the golden handcuffs, we call it? Would you like to stay and continue practicing and just have someone else be responsible for running everything? Do you just want to show up and provide services? Do you want to take the money and run to Hawaii and never, set foot in your hometown again? What would you like? I mean, seriously, how do you want that to be? So make a list. What would you like to happen when you retire? And then pick out of those what's non-negotiable. Like what are you going to draw a line in the sand and say, I really want to work, for 2 more years, so I get to come back. That's my non-negotiable. Or you could say, nope, I'm out of here. No golden handcuffs, please. Just I'll take a check and out I go. Those are so important so that your broker's going to want to know that, but your team is going to want to know that too, so that they go forward and work on this with you with the right spirit.
Yeah.
Because if the whole world doesn't understand what you're aiming at, they're going to make it up. And the last thing you want is your team making up reasons for why you're leaving your practice, or why you would want to leave your practice. So figure out that song and sing it loud and clear to your team so they're not surprised and they don't feel the need to make up answers because they don't know.
They will. You're absolutely true. Yeah.
Yep.
But this is a very good suggestion in that it's also encouraging us to be intentional and get a vision, to envision what we want our life to look like after this. Because we don't think there is an after, but there is an after. Yeah. Right? We're talking about how to get to that after, what that transition looks like. But what you're saying is take the time, and gosh, I think I needed to hear this today. Take the time to think about what that after looks like, because that's the why that's going to drive all of this anyway. And as you know, I had just now remembered, I have been working with a neurologist for some time who really needs to be seriously thinking about retirement, who has a very full, very thriving practice in the town that they work in. And it's very difficult to imagine leaving. And yet there's a bunch of people who are dependent upon this one provider who is the face of that practice. And I can totally see how if that person isn't careful, they're going to run into some problems because they're not doing the same things you're teaching us today. Thank you so much for this, Ruth. So y'all begin with the end in mind, whether it's about the end of your practice, the next phase of your life, and all the things that go into that mix. This is really, really helpful. Thank you.
Oh, good. Good. Thank you so much.
All right. Guys, I'm going to be sharing a link to the websites that she mentioned below, in particular, Prep It Now. And y'all have heard me. I have done episodes about the mistakes I made as a group practice owner. And this is one of the biggies. I have often said that one of the biggest mistakes I made was I did not buy the building that my practice was in because I didn't know that I needed to. And by the time I was ready to, the person I was renting from had a really good deal going because we'd been there a long time and we had the whole building and they were no longer interested in selling. That was a mistake that I have regretted. This is another one. I never even knew you could sell a practice. Like that just wasn't even in my vocabulary. And so what Ruth has taught you today, you will be so far ahead if you take this to heart and do what she says and prep it now.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you have an awesome week. I hope you got as much out of this as I did. I hope you will take this lesson to heart and do something with it. And I will see you next week right here on the Ideal Practice Podcast. Bye now. Hey, y'all. If this program has become important to you, if Ideal Practice matters, it would mean so much to me if you'd be willing to take just a minute to do one or two of the following things. First of all, would you follow or subscribe to the show here at Ideal Practice? Following me helps you because you'll never miss an episode, but it helps me as well for all kinds of reasons. To do that, all you have to do is go to the show page for Ideal Practice on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. There, just click on the plus sign that you'll usually find in the top right-hand corner, or click on the word follow that you're going to find somewhere there on that page. Of all the things, this really is the most important thing you can do for the podcast itself. While you're there, it would be extra special if you would be willing to give me a 5-star rating And even better than that, a review with your own words. Your words matter. And when you write what you feel, what you think, you uplift and encourage others. And I love that. If you want to go a step further than that, take your favorite episode or two, one of the ones that has meant a lot to you, and share it with a friend. Could you do one or two of those things for me? I promise I will love you forever. You guys matter to me, and I value your support more than I can possibly say. Thank you, sweet friend, for anything you can do to help me out and support the show. I'll see you again soon.